Hello, welcome to the Live Reality Games podcast. My name is Steven, and I'm here with some Surviving Bloomington postseason content. And what better way to kick off the postseason is to talk with the winner of Surviving Bloomington All Stars, Jordan. Jordan, how are you doing?
I am doing great, Stephen. I'm grateful to be here.
Like, walking into season 5, what chances did you give yourself at winning the game?
Zero. Absolutely none. Absolutely none.
Yeah. I mean, then at what point are you in the game going like, wow, I think I can do this?
I think maybe around final 5.
Really, that late?
Yeah, I think it was. I had to go back through the episodes earlier and figure out the order of everyone getting voted out, but I think it was after Griffin was voted out.
The final 6.
And then the final people were Adam, Hannah, Rosie, me, and Sparky. I think that's when I was like, wow, I can like maybe actually pull this off. But going into it, I mean, even in like the pregame interview, I was like, if I make it to merge, that's great, but that's probably not going to happen for me. So
I think let's back up a bit and let's kind of talk about your journey to Surviving Bloomington All Stars. I guess let's start with Survivor. Like, did you watch Survivor? Did you grow up watching it? Like, what was your experience with the CBS TV show?
So this is actually it's pretty funny. I remember like when I was younger, like elementary school age, I remember my parents would have it on the TV when like Richard Hatch would be walking around naked, which is just wild to think that we allowed that to happen. But it was actually during COVID, and I was like hanging out with my partner and her sister, and we were just so bored. And her sister was like, let's watch Survivor. Like, it's on Netflix. I think that's what it was or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that show's so dumb. Like, let's like find something else. And she's like, no, it's good. It'll be like when we were little. And we watched it, and I was like, dang, this is actually pretty good. Like,
what season did you watch it?
I think I started on like the one with like Parvati, like where they manipulated all the guys at the end.
And that just like,
yeah, I was like totally hooked after that. So I really didn't start watching Survivor until like 2020. And then after that season, I was like, this is great. And just kind of threw a lot of attention at it. But that's, yeah, so I don't really have a lot of experience with CBS Survivor, honestly. I mean, since then, I've watched like all of the new era shows, and I've watched the old ones that I can like get my hands on. But yeah, I love it now.
We have your first shout out from your adoring fans.
Adam! Hi, Adam.
I believe the banner, I don't know, changed. So there used to be a banner saying like, and then Adam made everything difficult.
Love it. I love Adam.
Which was the theme of the season we will talk about.
Yeah, he's my buddy. I can't wait to talk about you, Adam.
So going from watching Survivor to discovering a live game and playing Survivor are two very different things. How did you discover Surviving Bloomington?
This is something people probably won't expect, but a few years back, I was working at a camp as a recreation therapist, and Wounded Warrior Project would bring veterans to camp, and I would do programming with them. And their therapist for Wounded Warrior Project was Mia. So Mia and I became friends through work. And randomly, I think it was like in maybe early 2021, something like that, Mia reached out to me on Facebook and was like, do you watch the show Survivor? And I was like, that's so weird that you asked, because I just recently started. And she's like, I found this game that's taking place in Bloomington and I'm playing, like, you should play too. And I was like, okay, that sounds fun. So actually, like, Mia and I, out of everyone, Mia and I have known each other the longest. And Mia's the one that introduced me to Surviving Bloomington. So we played together season 4 and then again in season 5.
Okay, that's really interesting, because I was wondering about your relationship with Mia, and that would make sense that you have a lot more than just playing Survivor season 4 with the two of you.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's kind of hard to capture on film, but in season 4 and in season 5, Mia and I kind of went into the game knowing like we're friends, we're gonna like watch each other's back. And we never like talked about like being each other's number one or anything like that, but we just like we're friends outside of the game and we love each other so much. So we would never target each other, and we would always, whatever gossip we heard, we would, get back to each other, but not in like a super blatant, like out there kind of way.
So season 4, you end up in 9th place. At a high level, kind of describes me what playing that was like for you.
It was super fun for me. I had just moved to Bloomington, and it's hard to kind of make friends here as someone like post college, because it's just a bunch of college kids. So I was really just looking for a way to meet people that were a similar age, and I accomplished that, which is great. Looking back, between season 4 and season 5, watching more seasons of CBS Survivor, I can like pinpoint all of the things that I did incredibly wrong. Mainly like as soon as merge happened, like taking out all of like the super big threats. So then of course I was like right along right after that, because I was like targeting all of these people. So it's funny to look back and kind of see how my game developed between seasons. But overall it was a really great time. And it was great to meet so many people that I'm still in contact with and friends with now.
So I felt like from when the first time I played a live reality game, like I'd watched Survivor, I had so many ideas of what it'd be like to play Survivor. Then I played Survivor, I was like, oh, I really didn't do what I thought I would be like or play. Did you have that feeling, or did you feel like you played exactly like you set out to play that first season?
I think that I have like an idea in my head of how I would like to play, but in reality, I don't think I could do that. Like, I would love to just be able to be cutthroat, and like, I think I try to portray that about myself, that like, oh, I don't care about anybody's feelings. I'm just going to like backstab people, but I really can't do that. Like, if I like build relationships with people in the game, there are some people that, like, oh, they would respect this and it would be fine. But there are other people that if I'm like, oh, this is going to hurt their feelings, like I genuinely feel bad about it. Maybe it would be different if there were like $1 million on the line. I don't know. Yeah. I also think that on CBS Survivor, they make it look so much easier. But in season 4, like it started raining and like my shoes and socks were wet, and I was like, this is miserable. Like, and then you see them like on an island and they're like covered in sand and they're like freezing and shivering, and I'm like, damn, like that would be really, really hard. Like just being uncomfortable all the time.
Nothing like spending a night wet in the rain to give you so much more appreciation of what the actual show is like.
100%. And on top of that, like being wet is uncomfortable, but then having like sand stuck to you, like, and just no reprieve from it, I'm like, man, and hungry, like, I don't know, the TV just can't do that justice, I don't think.
So what would you feel like were your biggest takeaways from season 4? Like, what did you learn?
I definitely learned the lesson of having shields, which is why even though Adam doesn't believe me, I tried to keep him in the game as long as possible, because everyone was like, Adam's a threat, we got to get Adam. And I was like, Adam, I want to work with you. Like, I want to keep you here as long as possible. So I think that they always say on Survivor that like timing is everything. And that I think in season 5 is what I learned to be really true. Like, you can know that someone's a threat, and that doesn't mean that you want to take them out right at merge. Like, you need people to like take the heat off of you. You need people to focus on other people and not yourself. That was a huge takeaway from season 4 for me. And also I think just trusting people. I know that you talked to Mitch earlier in your podcasting, and that was a really hard thing, because the reason why I was voted out, I believe, was Mitch's doing, and I had given him my idol to try and like build this bridge and to get him to trust me, and he thought that I had like ulterior motives, which I really didn't. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep stuff to myself this time, as much as I can.
So what do you think? coming out of season 4, what did you think other people's perceptions of you were?
Probably chaotic. Probably one huge thing that I think I did in season 4 from the get-go, every person that would come up and talk to me and be like, final 3 deal, final 3, I'd be like, yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I had like so many final 3 deals, which obviously that never works. So I think going into, season 5, I'm assuming that people thought they couldn't trust me at all, and that I was pretty chaotic, and would probably try and, take out folks pretty quickly. I don't know. That's my assumption.
So you get cast for the All-Star game. Is there anything you do in preparation for it? Do you know who the cast is likely going to be coming into the game?
So Megan, Sparky, and we both knew that we were going to be playing this year, and we live super close to each other. So like one night a week, we would go to the YMCA for like, we weren't like working out, like we would ride bikes for like 30 minutes, really just to catch up. But we kind of like committed that time to doing physical activity, but also, talking about the game. And Casey didn't blatantly say who would be playing, like he didn't publish it on the website. But I'm pretty sneaky, so I tried to like look up the GoFundMe's like in the backhand, like searching like Casey's name on GoFundMe. So I had like kind of a decent idea, but for season 4, a lot of the cast that had played previously were there like in a support role. So I had met like Megan Wolf, Adam, Devontae, Dallas. Yeah, so I had met them before, and I just kind of like assumed that if they were available, they would be playing again.
So the season begins, and it is a 3-tribe season. Was your previous season 2 tribes or 3 tribes?
I believe that's a good question. I don't remember.
It's all blur.
I think maybe it started off as 3. Yeah.
Okay. So you're in a 3-tribe season again. 3 tribes is 6. And it's kind of the setup is Brains, Beauty, Brawn, and you are a beauty.
Yeah.
Were you?
I don't know why. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, I feel like your game evidenced it very strongly if we put beauty as a social component.
Yeah, which to me is interesting because I don't think that in season 4 I would have necessarily have considered myself like a strong social player. I don't know. I wasn't mad about it.
I mean, you were eyeing the Brawn or the Brains tribe saying, wow, I should be over there right now.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think like from the beginning, I don't think I had like any super strong feelings about it. I think I was actually glad that Sparky and I weren't on the same tribe from the get-go. I didn't want people to really like realize that we were kind of close until later down the road. So I was grateful about that.
So looking at the cast as a whole, and then like who was standing out to you?
Adam always stands out. But I remember meeting Adam out in the woods during season 4, and I was like, this dude is so cool. I knew that we would just immediately get along and kind of click. So I wanted to work with Adam from the get-go. As a human, as a person, I love Devontae. But in Survivor World, Devontae is just like vicious. And I know that he loves to orchestrate like the good blind side, the really showy. I mean, you watched it. So I knew like maybe in the beginning it would be cool to work with Devontae, but I knew that he was a person that like long-term I wouldn't be able to trust. That's how I felt. When Megan Wolf was on cast season 4, we clicked. Love Megan Wolf, love Rosie. Yeah, so those were the kind of people that I either like played with during season 4 or they were on cast and I just like really clicked with them.
You also have your season 4 winner on your tribe with you.
Yes, Boogie. Yeah.
Were you excited to see him there? Were you just like, I need to get him out because he won last season for a reason?
No, the tricky thing is that if Devonte hadn't been on our tribe, I think Boogie and I would have aligned, you know, early on in the game. But I knew that Boogie and Devonte were really close.
Hmm.
So, I knew that I wasn't really going to get in the middle of that and have like a long-term thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, your tribe, one of the twists of the season is despite being an All Star game, there are 3 players who have played live rally games before, but have never played Surviving Bloomington. Your tribe gets 2 of those players, and Connor and Hannah. What was
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
I think that I clicked with Hannah pretty quickly. I think Connor is like a great guy. I didn't really get to know him that well, unfortunately. I think from their perspective, coming into a game like that would be really difficult, like
Mm-hmm.
incredibly difficult, because we all have known each other for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think if I were to go elsewhere and play a different live game, I don't think I would tell anyone that like I had played before, or I would be like, yeah, I played like one time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Stacy coming in being like, I've played like 50 of these games. And I was like, she's got to go. Like, there's no way. Like, there's no way. And I don't know. Maybe that was like just me. But to me, when she said that, I was like, you are like a huge threat. Like, you've done this so many times. Like, you're so comfortable with people. Like, she's got to go. So that was kind of my perspective of playing with them. But pretty immediately, like within the first 30 minutes of being at camp, Hannah pulled me aside and was like, let's work together. Like, let's not let anybody know, like, but I'm on, your team. Like, let's partner up. And I didn't really see her having those conversations with anyone else. So I trusted her pretty immediately.
Mm-hmm. And I guess the last person in tribe we haven't really talked about is Brianna.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like Brianna, and it was not until, I don't think it was until like watching the show back that I really realized what happened with Brianna. I think one thing that didn't really translate super well over like the footage was when we were like voting people back in.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was giving their pitch, and Brianna was like, I have a goal, I have a mission, and that's like to get Jordan out. And I was like, I literally rewatched it back today when I was trying to get stats, and like my jaw dropped because we were going to unanimously vote her back in. And I was like, why does she hate me? Like, I'm so confused by this. And then, Meredith said the same thing. And I'm like, okay, like I'm going to be the next to go, obviously. But it turns out like right before that tribal, I found the idol, and
Okay.
Brianna happened to be like
There with you.
standing there. But we were already planning on like her being the one to go, but she thought it was someone else. So
Hannah.
she thought that when I found the idol, I quickly told everyone to like flip and vote her out so that no one would know that I had the idol. When in reality, like she was already the one we were planning to vote for. But I was so shocked. I was like, why did she just try and call me out in front of everyone? But yeah, I don't know if she still holds any bad feelings towards me, but she's a great person. She's fun to play with.
So one of the initial twists of the season is bringing in the shot in the dark from CBS Survivor and letting it be clear that these are transferable and multiple can be played at once. How much was that really factoring into your strategy early on?
So I didn't even know we could do that until Devonte had like saved himself. And then I was like, how is he still here? Like, what happened? And they were like, you didn't know? Like, you can collect these, and like 6 would be an idol. And I'm like, what on earth? Like, so I must have been like off, like doing something when that was announced, or like when the paper was read or something. I didn't know that. But it made it so much more fun. And I don't know why they haven't introduced that on CBS Survivor, because I don't know, it's a lot more fun, and it provides opportunities to kind of like a different avenue to get back some power if your kind
Mhm.
of like back is up against the wall. So
Mhm.
super fun. I think I left the game and like the following week I was at the airport and I like opened my fanny pack and I had like my little bullet in there. And I was like, I'm pretty sure they probably like don't like they let me go through
They
security
will
with the
love it, I'm
bullet,
sure.
but yeah. So I don't think I ended up having two somehow, and I gave one to Adam, but
Mhm.
I didn't even use my other one. But it's really fun for sure.
So it seemed like early tribe dynamics, right? So you, Devontae, and Boogie were kind of this core three. Hannah was really identifying. I think I can't remember if it was you or Devontae or you or Boogie, but she's like, these are the people I need to get in with. And then
Mhm.
Connor and Brianna were kind of together as a duo.
Yeah. I don't think that they were a duo. I think they were just like kind of
Mm-hmm.
like on their own. I think that when yeah, because Connor went second. So I think that what happened is I think Connor felt super comfortable that he was like a bigger dude
Mm-hmm.
and we were doing team challenges. So I think that he just assumed, you know, going into tribal that like it wouldn't be him because we would, you know, need him for his strength or whatever. Um, but he never tried to have a conversation with me. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, my perspective is like if you're going into tribal and no one has talked to you, then it's probably gonna be you. Um, so I don't know if, you know, maybe he had conversations with like Boogie and Devontae or something, but he and I never talk strategy.
And so
So
when it came up between kind of him and Hannah, it was very cut and dry for you.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I really did think I thought that Connor did have the idol. Because we were like walking along the trail and I think myself and maybe Devontae were like in the front of the group. And I remember looking back and he was like jogging back towards the water. And I was like, what is he doing? And then we walked back there later and there was just an empty string hanging from the
Mm-hmm.
tree. So I was like, that was a clue or like he definitely has something. And then I ended up finding the idol. But
Whoops.
but by that point the seed was like already planted and I was just like, sorry, Bob, like we can't switch it after this. So yeah. I don't know if he watches these, but Connor, I really did think that you had the idol. I wasn't just trying to throw you under the bus.
The next you lose one more challenge, and that's where Brianna goes home. I mean, what let and the vote again was Hannah or Brianna. Like, what led you to go one way or the other? Was there much contention between who should go home?
I think for me, it's just like it's just about relationships with people,
Mm-hmm.
and like talking strategy. And I think that Brianna is a person that probably like would have voted with me maybe for a few more votes, but then I think I don't know. She just like didn't really talk strategy that much and didn't really talk about like having loyalty at all. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
like from the get-go, Hannah was like, I want to work with you and um made me feel important, made me feel
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, I was a player that you know, she specifically wanted to work with. I think Hannah's really good at that.
How are you? So, looking at the four of you, Hannah, Devonta, Boogie, how are you feeling in that group of four?
Um I felt good. I felt safe. I think if it would have been the four of us and we would have gone back to tribal, I think that we would have probably voted Hannah out.
Okay.
I think that Boogie, Devontae, and I would have at least stayed like us three strong until there was some sort of switch up.
Mm-hmm. Well, thankfully, you make it to the swap, and you swap from three tribes to two, and you end up on Braun 2.0, right?
Yes.
And this is not you're sitting in an idol, which is an amazing thing to have, especially in a swap like this. But it's not pretty, right? Because it's Adam from the original Braun, Megan Wolf from original Braun, Rosie from original Braun, you, Dallas, and Devonte initially, right? And
And
Devonte
Meredith.
and Meredith, and Devonte just says no, thank you, and he mutinies, right?
Yeah.
And then Megan mutinies over to you, which was really shocking to see.
Yeah. So going into the game, Dallas and I were Megan's like two closest allies.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that she probably looked over and noticed that it was Braun 2.0 and she was like, maybe if there's three of us, then maybe like my two biggest allies have more of a fighting chance to stay in
Mhm.
this game, because it wouldn't do any good for her game if Dallas and I were like the first two picked off of that
Mhm.
tribe, you know. Um, yeah, so she mutinies, Devontae mutinies. And one thing that kind of comes up at Tribal, but if you pay attention at this point in the episode,
Mhm.
before Devontae announces to the group that he's mutinying, he like looks over at me and you can see him whisper in my ear as he's pulling something out of his bag. And he's like, I'm sorry, girl, this isn't good for my game, but at the merge, you better work with me because you know I know you have an idol. And at
And
that moment, I was like, that is brutal. Like that is like you're threatening me right now. So yeah, by that point, I was like, okay, good riddance. Like I got to figure this out.
What's fascinating about your game is you really relied on the Brawn tribe and the Brain tribe, right? You made strong alliances with those two tribes, and really, like Devontae and Boogie, you weren't. There was no long-term investment between the three of you.
No, 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 there really wasn't. And like I said, as humans, love them. As players, don't trust them.
Was there any temptation to take Meredith and Hannah and say, we're taking out Devontae, we're taking out Boogie, or is it just too early for something like that?
um, I think it probably at that time
Mm-hmm.
would have been too early. Um, but yeah, I think at that time it probably would have been too early, because what I was trying to do was make it always seem like there is someone more threatening than
Mm-hmm.
myself. And I think going into this, the two biggest threats from everyone's perspective who knew everyone would probably be Adam and Devontae.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking like as long as they're in there, like everyone can freak out about them and then
Mm-hmm.
I can like kind of slither around in the back.
Now, you swap tribes. I think you have a challenge, then you have the full night before tribal council, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
talk about the dynamics of this new tribe you're on that's really original Braun dominated.
Um, we had a lot of fun because going into it, like I said, I from season 4, like when I first met Adam, I was like, this dude's cool. I want to work with him.
Mm-hmm.
Rosie and I had that prior connection. Megan Wolf and I had a good connection
Mm-hmm.
from before. And actually, I think it was the night of the swap or the next morning, Megan Wolf approached me and she's like, I have a mutiny advantage. And she's like, you can have it if you think that you'd be better off going back over to the other tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like looking at the makeup and I'm like, honestly, like going into this game, all the people that I wanted to work with essentially are on this tribe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so as long as I can, you know, rekindle these relationships, I think it should be fine. So, you know, that first night, I think Megan, like Sparky and Dallas were exhausted. So I think that they pretty quickly slept away from camp. They were just ready to go to bed. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I got to put in work with these people and figure out like where the weakest link is.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured out that there was like a little wiggle room with Meredith. Like maybe I could get folks to vote for her.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of like talking to Megan Wolf, Adam, and Rosie about that. And then that night I like slept in between Megan Wolf and Meredith. So they like couldn't talk at night. I like intentionally was like squeezing myself in like original Braun tent. Um, so yeah, I just think it's so weird. Like you could play this game again with the exact same people and the outcomes would be so different. It just so happened that it was dominated by like original red that I felt very close with. So it worked out for me.
Because it's interesting, because Meredith was kind of on the outs of her tribe, right? She was likely going to be the next boot, but she was so red strong, right? Like that, she kind of was pinching her entire game on Braun and Braun alone. That it kind of it seemed a little inflexible, I guess.
Yeah, and some people love that. Like it's just so different. Like some people, you know, they want to work with people that are like so overtly loyal that they have nothing, you know, to worry about. But that just never works. Like
Mhm.
every time you watch Survivor, everyone's always like, let's be tribe strong, like we have the numbers, and it doesn't ever work. Like everyone always
I
says
mean,
that and it never
some
works
brief
that way.
spoilers, we might see that this season.
Hey, maybe,
I
maybe, but
doubt it, but you never know.
yeah, I don't know. It would be interesting to hear from like Adam, Megan
Mhm.
Wolf, Rosie. I would love to know why they chose to work with me over Meredith. I'm not sure. I'm grateful for it, but
Well, it's not like they had a choice considering there's gonna be idols that are played. So,
true.
um, you mentioned before that Dallas was a key person in Megan Sparky's game.
Yeah.
Was Dallas, but Dallas never seemed to be a keystone of your game.
No. It's so weird because it's really with people, it's like it's just vibes. It's like some people you just like you feel like you're on the same wavelength and
Mhm.
it's like, yep, I can like work with this person. We've had conversations, and other people it's like they just don't like align as far as gameplay. Like
Mhm.
outside of the game, Dallas and I are friends.
Mhm.
Love hanging out with Dallas. But in the game, we just never like synced up. It just didn't.
It really seemed like your alliance or relationship with Dallas was always mediated through Megan.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know why. I think they had conversations going into the game as well.
Mhm.
Maybe they, like in their free time, had just hung out more. I'm not sure. But like I said, like as a human, I love Dallas. But when
Mhm.
you bring this complex game into it, it's just
Mhm.
like some people, maybe it's like the style of gameplay or how you want to play. It just aligns with some people, and others, it's just not on the same path, right?
Mhm.
um, Plus, like I'm an incredibly needy person. Like I want to be Megan's number one. I don't want anyone else like potentially impacting that. Um, so that's true as well.
So going into this first vote as a new tribe, like it seemed pretty clear you have information that Dallas is the target.
Um, for
The Meredith
oh
vote out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I think that Meredith was obviously really heavily pushing like red strong, stay red
Mhm.
strong, like who's it going to be between, Jordan and Dallas. Um, and at that point, that was like a really key moment for me. Like I was hearing from, I think Megan Wolf and Rosie mainly. I don't think Adam and I were like close yet at this point, but I think it was
Mhm.
mainly Megan Wolf and Rosie saying like, we think that we can go with Meredith, like it'll be fine, whatever. I don't remember who was telling me Dallas. I think that Meredith was telling me Dallas, and other people were telling Meredith Dallas to like placate her, but it
Mhm.
was hard to know like who to trust.
Yeah.
Like, are they just trying to placate Meredith, or are they trying to like blindside like me, Sparky, and Dallas? Right?
Because if correct me if I'm wrong, the vote ends up being everyone vote like original red votes Dallas, and you Megan Sparky and Dallas vote Meredith, right?
So it would. I actually don't know. I don't know who all. I think Adam voted Meredith as well.
Okay.
So me, Sparky, Dallas,
Yeah,
and
I did not make notes of who voted who in my giant spreadsheet,
yeah,
which I regret.
I
But
think it was I think a few more. I think maybe like a couple more voted Meredith as well, because also when we were voting people back in, and Brianna was like, I want to get Jordan out, and Meredith was like, I want to get Jordan out too. And I was like, you're like red till your dead people were the ones that voted you out. Like it wasn't just me exclusively. Like yeah, so I think like at that point I was kind of surprised that she wasn't more upset with like Adam or like Megan Wolf, because I think that they voted for Meredith as well.
okay. Now, one of the big decisions is both you and Megan disclose each other you have idols, which makes sense given that you kind of were going in as ride or dies.
Right.
And then you both play your idols. I believe you play yours for yourself, and Dallas plays the other one for himself.
Yes. Mhm.
Talk about the decision about using both idols versus just one.
So for me personally, part of it is this is a brand new tribe. I don't know if I can trust them. Like, I
Mhm.
feel like I've built, these relationships overnight with them, but I'm not 100% sure. And I just want to guarantee that I'm going to make it
Mhm.
to the next event.
Mhm.
The other part of it being that by this point, I know that Devonte knows that I have an idol.
Mhm.
And because of that, I can't just hang on to this for like
Mhm.
a prolonged period of time.
Mhm.
So if I'm even a little bit nervous for this vote, I might as well play it so that Devonte can't like hold that over my head. I don't know if he's already told people on the other tribe that I have one. So for me, it's like if you have an idol and a bunch of people know about it, then it's really not like super powerful because then people
Mhm.
are just going to target you to try and flush it, right? So
Yeah.
by that point, I was like, I'm a little bit nervous. Might as well play it to ensure that I'm here.
So Meredith goes home. That's kind of the last we really see of this swap tribe, right? We see the other tribe, the Beauty 2.0, I guess, or whatever it is. Yeah, the Blue Tribe 2.0. They go to back travels, right? We see Griffin go home first, and then James and Alyssa in the double tribal.
Brutal. Yeah, that was
So
brutal.
I guess we'll talk a little bit about that. So when you look at the other tribe, who did you want to see go home?
Um, I think for me, on the other tribe, I had never met Griffin before,
Mm-hmm.
and I had never met Elisa before,
Mm-hmm.
but I had always heard like what an incredible player Elisa was.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I didn't know her, but I kind of viewed her as threatening. So
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't upset when she got voted out like before merge.
Mm-hmm.
But I obviously didn't want Mia to go. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to play with Mia. Um, I also I like James is my friend, but I've never played with James, so I
Mm-hmm.
kind of wanted to play with James.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think the two people that I felt not like the most aligned with because I didn't really know them was Griffin and Elisa.
So it kind of worked out in your favor then with the people who got voted out.
Yeah.
Um, and so during the challenge where you have essentially a prisoner's dilemma and you're kind of in a tete-a-tete or tea time with a person of the opposing tribe, you're partnered up with Hannah,
Yeah.
which I thought was a pretty good. Was that your dream pair, or like that still felt pretty good for you?
Um that felt good for me. I think at that point I was trying so hard just to make sure that my standing in my own tribe was okay,
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't really have like the capacity at that point to try and like get information about the other tribe. So in hindsight, like maybe that meeting could have been a little more fruitful,
Mm-hmm.
but I was so worried about making sure I didn't get voted out that it wasn't like really
Mm-hmm.
a mission for me to like get a bunch of information.
Adam says he voted Meredith.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's my boy.
So I want to talk a bit because we don't see you during the swap tribe very much. Where are you working? What is your goal during this day?
So I knew that my relationship with Sparky was super strong.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like people probably knew from the season before that we'd played together, but I didn't just like go around and tell people that we had like gone to the YMCA together once in a week, once a week. So I kind of like didn't want to talk to Sparky a whole lot, but I
Mm-hmm.
knew that our relationship was strong, we were good, and because of that, I would know what was going on with Dallas as
Mm-hmm.
well. So I was really focusing on trying to build relationships with Adam, Megan Wolf, and Rosie.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to work with those people. And like
Mm-hmm.
I said, from the beginning, I wanted to keep Adam in as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what I was trying to do was trying to get Adam to trust me, which I don't think ever happened, but I was trying. So that's where my focus was.
So at least from watching the episodes of the three of them, really seemed that Megan was positioning Adam as her shield and running things.
Mm.
in that group of three. That was kind of how the show kind of was portraying it a bit. At what point who were you the most wary of the three of them?
I honestly was kind of surprised that I guess it would have been after merge,
Mm-hmm.
the first and only person that threw my name out was Megan Wolf. And that was the second tribal after merge.
Mm-hmm.
So I think now in hindsight, I'd be like a little skeptical, but that was surprising to me.
Mm-hmm.
But um, I don't know. Their personalities are so different. Like Rosie's the type of person that I know would be loyal all the way until the end.
Mm-hmm.
Adam is the type of person that I know would be loyal until like at least final 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really feel super skeptical about those two.
Mm-hmm.
But I did feel a little skeptical about Megan Wolf a little bit later. And I was skeptical about Dallas because I think we were both just like trying to secure like Megan's number one spot, you know?
So you end up emerging, and to your surprise, you see James Alyssa voted out and Devontae's still around.
Yes.
Talk me through this initial part of the merge before we get to the vote back.
So I think the vote right before that, like the prisoner's dilemma stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I like fully understood all of that. They were kind of like complex instructions, and it ended up being like that super weird scenario where like literally Dallas was the only person that picked betray
Yeah.
to Devontae. Um, so I think by that point I was like so tired and hungry and just worked up that I was like, they're
You
gonna
mean
figure it
the
out.
Lunchable wasn't filling?
Wasn't filling, not enough. It was like so hot, but I was just like, you know what? They'll figure like that out. But I think I was confused that Devontae like found a way to weasel himself out because
Mm-hmm.
I thought based on the instructions that he would be the only one that would be eligible
Mm-hmm.
to be voted for. Um, so then to learn that he like found, he accrued 6 bullets, I was just like, what is
Well,
going
that's not the
on?
first thing he tells you, though.
No, he said something about like we're gonna merge and then immediately vote someone out, I think.
Well, I think when like they merge at your camp, right? And the first thing he tells everyone is like, I was willed an advantage from the people who were voted out, and I use that to be safe. He doesn't come clean about the shots in the dark initially.
So I don't. I think it was Hannah
Mm-hmm.
that ended up pulling me aside and saying that he had gotten 6 bullets. But I don't think like him saying that he was willed something. I don't think I like immediately thought anything extravagant about it. I was just like, of course you did. Like, of course you did. That's not surprising. Like
Mm-hmm.
somebody's watching and wants to make this like flamboyant and like sneaky. Um, but yeah, it was interesting to find out from Hannah later that that was not actually what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's like the charm of Devontae. Like that's not surprising to me at all. Like that he could go and get 6 of those, and that's why he's like he is a big threat.
So one of the things that happens at the merge is we have two players return and join you. Griffin wins the challenge to come back in, but then you're told the merge tribe needs to vote someone in. You mentioned earlier that initially the discussion had been Brianna was the one that people wanted to bring back in.
Yeah, it was like I'm pretty sure it was like unanimous. Like everyone wanted to vote Brianna back in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was actually surprised when she did her little statement instead and said that her goal was to get me out. I remember like sitting in the back row and feeling like the people sitting on the logs in front of me like kind of look back at me.
She also tells everyone you have an idol, right? She also does that too, and you're like, whoa, I played it. It's not here anymore.
Yeah. So I think for me, I was worried that by her and Meredith saying that it was going to make me seem threatening. I'm surprised that like after that, people weren't like, obviously something's going on here. Like, we need to get her out. I'm grateful that they didn't. Um, I was also surprised that after Brianna said that people were like, okay, obviously we're not voting her back in now. It was like, which I was surprised. I was like, damn, like, so whoever votes for her or Meredith to come back in, like, obviously they want me gone, right? Um, so I was grateful that it didn't end up going that way. And
Because that vote ends up being very chaotic, right? And I didn't realize that if that was partially because people had come in with the plan of we want Brianna, then Brianna essentially makes it so people don't want to bring her back in.
Yeah.
And so who did you end up voting for to bring back in?
I think I voted for Stacy.
Okay. And so how did the consensus for Stacy arise out of that chaos?
I think during her speech, she kind of said, like, I want to come back in without any sort of game plan. Like, I want to get to know people and like what's going on. Like, she said that she would come in open-minded, which I was grateful to hear. I also think, like, looking at the folks that had been voted out, like, by that point, like, I didn't want to vote Elisa back in. Who else was out? Obviously not Meredith and Brianna.
Yeah. So David, Connor, Stacy, Brianna, Meredith, Griffin, James, Elisa. It sounds like you'd be open to James, Connor, Stacy, maybe David?
Yeah. David was part of the group that voted me out.
Oh, never mind.
Prior. So again, love him as a human, but I think at that point I was like, I can't like trust him. I really didn't know Connor or Stacy. So I think it was kind of like, what do my like allies want to do? And I just kind of went along with it at that point. As long as it like wasn't Meredith or Brianna at that point, I think I was kind of fine with it.
So Stacy enters the game. Do you talk to her a lot, or are you kind of focusing on your pre-existing relationships at this point?
No, I didn't. Stacy's another person that outside of the game, she's like so sweet and hilarious and just so funny. Love her as a person, but just in the game, we never like it just never lined up for us to work together. Also, I assumed that going into the game after redemption that her and Connor or her and Griffin would have some sort of like something to help them at least in like the first or second vote.
Which they did.
We all kind of like asked them like, did you get anything? And I think maybe Griffin said like, oh, I got an extra bullet or something like that. And I was like, these people are lying. So I don't know. For me, like, it's hard that late in the game. If someone's not gonna like offer up some information, then it's kind of too late for me, I think.
So looking at kind of the battle lines of this merge, you're in kind of a good place, right? Because your Braun 2.0 tribe, it's the majority, right? You have kind of solidified connections with that Braun contingent, as well as you have Megan and Griffin, and you still have your own Brain tribe, kind of with Devontae, Boogie, and Hannah. But I get the sense that you're not super invested in that.
Yeah, I really wasn't, because like the season before, I didn't really work with Boogie a lot. Devontae, I was so caught off guard during Final Tribal when he was like, you were my number one, I wanted to work with you. Because we never had like a conversation about long-term game planning. Like, we knew like when there were 3 tribes at the beginning that, yeah, me, you, and Boogie, like at least the 3 of this tribe will work together. But we never had a conversation about playing together long term. So I think I was kind of surprised when he was upset by that. But yeah, I think like when Merge first happened, there were so many people going for Adam, Sparky, Devontae, Boogie, and Mia. Like, people were like super into voting for Mia as well. And I was like, I'm just going to hang out back here and like not draw a bunch of attention to myself. So
why Devontae is the merge boot?
Honestly, that's just like a majority of people, I think, led by Adam, wanted to get Devontae out. Saw him as a huge threat. And like I said during Final Tribal, like there's nothing, if I would have like really wanted to keep Devontae at that point, like there was nothing I could have done to save him from like the massive amount of people that wanted to get him out. Yeah, I think that's just, he came in as such a big threat that it was his time.
So the next round, this is a double vote, right? Where you're going to vote two people off, and I believe everyone knew that going into it. And this round, I believe that like the people kind of come together to turn on that Braun contingent of Megan Wolf, Rosie, and Adam.
Yeah, and that is when Megan Wolf goes first, right?
Yes.
And I don't remember who I was like originally pitching for that. I think it was definitely for that double vote. I wanted Stacy to go because I didn't trust that she didn't have some sort of like advantage.
Even after she played that All or Nothing idol the previous round?
Did she play that during Devontae?
Yeah, I think she and Griffin played their All or Nothing at that merge vote.
Got you. Well, I wanted to work, still at this point, I wanted to work with Megan Wolf. But then I remember someone approaching me and saying that Megan Wolf was throwing my name out there. And that's when I was like, okay, well, this sucks. But like, she's literally the only person up until this point that has like thrown my name out there. So like, she's got to go at this point. And I think maybe at this point I was interested in maybe getting Dallas out because I always felt like he was kind of threatening, but Griffin and Dallas and Sparky had like linked up at this point. Like now that Griffin's back in the game, that's like another layer of protection for Dallas. Yeah, so I think at this point of the merge, I'm still like trying to lay low a little bit, but once Megan Wolf said my name, I was like, okay, she's got to go, and I don't care like who the other person is.
So I believe the vote would have been for Adam this round, right? Except Adam plays 4 shots in the dark. Hold on. Oh, that's okay. Okay, I'm mixing up. So yeah, so Megan just goes home with straight votes, and then Adam plays shots in the dark after that, right? Right. Megan goes home. Megan leaves him like her stuff.
Yes.
And Adam plays shots in the dark. 1 was his, 2 were from Megan, and the 4th one is from you.
Yes.
Do you regret giving Adam that shot in the dark?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Because it seems like it took 4 scrolls from the be safe, and that your shot in the dark could have been a critical component to that.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that had Adam gone that early, I don't think I would have made it that far. Like I needed Adam in the game. Like I needed at the final 5, final 6, I needed to be with people that people did not want to take to the end. You know what I'm saying? Like I needed to be with other people that had higher threat levels, and I needed to look like I was weaker than them.
And that's one of the things I've been wondering, was Adam's immunity streak overall net benefit for your game or net detriment?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I think towards the end, like Hannah is such an incredibly like brilliant player. And if she hadn't been so hyper focused on Adam, like if he would have gone earlier and she would have like some of her focus would have shifted to like, okay, who of these people would like actually genuinely take me to the end? She would have noticed that like me and Sparky needed to be like broken up. She would have targeted me earlier. I think a lot of people would have targeted me earlier, but they were so hung up on Adam the whole game. And another thing I think that saved me was, I know we'll talk about this later, but the challenge with like the group questions when Adam, like people voted Sparky as playing the best game. And then later at a tribal, Adam called Sparky out. Like that took like, yeah, everyone look at Sparky, like look what she's doing. So Adam helped my game in like a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm. Which is interesting because like you try the vote on Adam at the final 8, and that's when Adam shots in the dark and Mia goes out, right?
I think so. And um I think that's around the time that Adam and I kind of get into it at Tribal.
Yeah,
That
that
was
is.
yeah. Yeah, so that was the vote out right after the night challenge that we
Mm-hmm.
had.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like trying to work with Adam, and as soon as we like get this challenge, he just like runs off in the woods, and I'm like, I am so done with this dude. Like
Yeah,
he is like,
and Adam just like is making swings at tribal council, and you are having none of it.
yeah. Because it's like, dude, I've been trying to work with you,
Yeah.
you know. And in hindsight, I understand. I
Mm-hmm.
understand why. You know, Adam's a lovely dude, and I would hate to go an entire game with people gunning for me every single vote.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand it in hindsight, but after being like sweaty and in the heat and like mentally exhausted, I was just like, dude, shove it. Like, I'm not taking this right now.
So backing up a bit back to the final 11-10 vote, right? So
Mhm.
Megan goes out, Adam plays a shot in the dark, and I think there's an extended clip of this, but it ends up being a three-way tie with like Stacy, Hannah, and Rosie, right?
I think so. Yeah.
And you kind of get your wish with Stacy going home.
Yes. Yes. And I think I remember having a conversation. I think Sparky and Dallas, you can see us like talking, and Mia was part of that too. And they were really wanting not Stacy. I think they were wanting Rosie. And
Mm-hmm.
I told them like I'll go to Rocks like to keep Rosie in this. Like it's either Stacy or like I'll go to Rocks and force this right now because I knew that they wouldn't. I knew that they would back off from that. But I definitely didn't want Rosie to go. And
Mm-hmm.
at that point, I still felt like close with Hannah. I felt like I was still like the number one person that Hannah was working with.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have that closeness with Stacy. So I kind of threatened like I want it to be Stacy or else like I will throw a wrench in this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your relationship with your relationship with Hannah is interesting because it feels like it's Hannah investing a lot more in you than vice versa, right? And I feel like as Merge continues, you just have other options
Mm-hmm.
that are more available to you.
So I actually felt very close with Hannah until that puzzle where she was helping Griffin. And that's
The
when I
final
was
6.
like, yeah, that's when I was like, whoa, like this girl is like playing me right now. Because what is hard to see on camera is that Hannah and I tried to be very discreet the whole time. So like we wouldn't be seen like walking down the trail together, like in passing we'd be like, are you good, are you good, like yeah, we're still good. And I didn't see her like having those strategy conversations with other people. I don't know. So I felt very close to her, like I really
Mm-hmm.
felt like I could trust her. And you know, we would share information. And then it wasn't until that damn slide puzzle when I was like, are they helping each other, like trying to look down and see what was going on. And then I was like, okay, like this is like not what I thought it was, right?
So had that not happened, would you have been willing to go further with Hannah or Griffin, or you were kind of set in your path regardless?
I mean, by that point, we're at final 6.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, it was kind of like set in the path regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, yeah.
So
Adam had won immunity.
again,
Um, yeah, it was kind of what it is at final 5 by then.
so let's go back a bit to the final 9, right? This is when Bookie goes home. This is a big deal because it's the first. There's 2 former winners. And he's the first one to go out, and you're kind of, I feel like, shedding like, hey, I don't need my original beauty tribe because I have all these other options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, by that point, like original tribe was not a thought in my mind at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then the last of the day is this is when you like everyone votes for Adam. Adam plays one shot in the dark, gets lucky, and Mia goes out. Like,
Yeah.
was Mia in your final 3 plans?
Um, honestly, I don't like at that point, I don't think I had like hard final 3 plans.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think what I was trying to do was keep people around me that I thought would take me to the final three, because I know that I'm not strong at challenges. Like in 2 seasons, I've won 1 immunity challenge. Like it's not my
You won
forte.
one though, and it mattered.
Yeah, that's true. But like I'm not good at puzzles. I can't do slide puzzles. It's just not my thing. So I'm like looking around trying to figure out like who do I think would really take me like to the final three at the end. I think Mia would have, so that was kind of disheartening. But that's just how it worked out, you know. So I wish I would have stayed in a little longer, but
yeah, I mean, so if Adam couldn't go home at the final 8, and who was your, and like you, if you could rewrite history and cast a vote for someone else, sorry, to tie it up, who would you cast that vote for?
I don't know if it would have mattered if I would have like picked Dallas or Griffin to go, you know, sooner, and it was a tie and we did a revote. I still think that everyone would have voted for Mia. I don't think that like a tie would have changed anything. And ultimately, like, you know, Mia was a person like at the end that like was casting a vote for me to win. So it was kind of one of those scenarios where I was like, there are a handful of people that I don't want them to go out by my hand, but ultimately, like, I want them on the jury because I think that they would vote for me. So that was like kind of one of those perfect scenarios where I'm like, oh man, this sucks, but like at least I'm not the one that voted her out. You know what I mean? Like it didn't make any relationships awkward. It's just one of those things that like I think really happened by chance, you know. And actually I think Adam and Rosie kind of orchestrated that, but yeah.
I mean, this final 8 rounds, I feel like is a pretty big pivot point, right? Because I guess, first of all, you have the touchy subjects round where Megan really gets highlighted as this threat, and Adam really plays that up. You have Adam, you and Adam and Megan kind of go at it in that tribal council as well. I mean, if Adam goes out here, the game is probably very different without him being this like attention magnet.
Exactly. And that's why, like, I don't know. I feel like if people are like questioning why, like, you know, I specifically didn't target him sooner, I'm like, this is exactly why, because he puts on a great show. And as long as he's there, it was really like everyone fighting about who is a bigger threat between Sparky and Adam. So that was great for me, you know? Oh, you're muted.
So that kind of wraps up day 3, which is a very long, very wild day. How are you feeling at the end of it?
Good. I think, let's see. Yeah, I get the days all mixed up. I think that this is the time where I start feeling like a little nervous, a little anxious, because I do see that like Griffin and Dallas and Sparky are super close. And I think the counteraction to that is like I felt rather like semi close to like Adam and Rosie. And I felt like Sparky and I were always each other's number ones. But it was after that night challenge. So this was like before Mia got voted off, but after like the night challenge when Sparky found like that weird stick.
Yeah.
And she like ran over to talk to Dallas, and she like didn't like come to me to debrief, and I was like, I'm jealous. Like, why isn't she talking to me? And that's when I was like, you know what, tomorrow I'm gonna have to like really like work on this relationship with Rosie. Like if Megan is going to do this side stuff with Dallas and like she's not going to be willing to target Dallas and Griffin, then like I have to find another means of doing that. So it was perfect the next morning, I think, when we did the auction and Rosie and I found those steal a boat things. by that point I was like, okay, like I have a plan. Like after the night challenge, I had a soft plan by that point, and it was definitely like Rosie. I have to like have a final 3 deal with Rosie as well.
I feel like because that relationship that you leveraged with Rosie ends up being one of the key aspects of this game.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like remember sitting out in a field and I had like a little piece of paper and I was trying to draw out like how, like, what is my path? Like, what is the path to the end here?
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that like just working with Sparky, it wasn't going to work because it would end up being Griffin and Dallas going behind Sparky's back to get me out to not upset her. Like
Mm-hmm.
it just wasn't going to work, you know? And I knew at this point in the game, there's still enough people like with Adam, with Hannah, with Rosie to like get Dallas and then get Griffin.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like for me the point that I was like, I think I can actually do this. Like I think I can pull this off.
What did you end up buying at the auction?
I got a beer brewing kit.
There was some good stuff.
Yeah. I bought a freaking cup of dirt, which is annoying. I don't know. Casey like has really good stuff, like really fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was awesome that there were like 12 scrolls on the ground, and the first one I picked up was like a winner. And I was like, this is like, by the grace of God, this is what I needed in this moment. So that was really great. But yeah, I think Rosie won like that throwing burrito game.
Mm-hmm.
He had ordered Survivor puzzles from someone's like Etsy that Adam ended up winning. There's a lot of fun stuff.
Were you tempted at all to vote out Rosie to make your advantage an idol?
No.
That's interesting.
No, because his vote, like, one, I knew he would vote with me.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I knew that if he got to like final 4, that he would take me to final 3. Mm-hmm. And that like those two things combined for me are more powerful than just like having one idol, you know?
Mm-hmm. So Mia goes out, and this is when everyone kind of starts turning on. Everyone looks at Megan and Dallas says, yeah, this is a problem that needs to be addressed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I'm trying to remember those conversations. Gosh, it's been so long ago. But I think at that point we were kind of stacking up numbers of like Dallas, Griffin, and Sparky voting together. And then me, Adam, Rosie, and Hannah. So I think within that, Hannah is kind of like the swing vote at that point. Mm-hmm. So again, I don't know why folks like went along with that. I think maybe they were seeing Sparky as like the biggest threat because Adam is immune for like the 20th time. So I think that they were probably trying to weaken Sparky by taking out Dallas and Griffin.
Well, my impression from the episode was that like everyone wants Megan out, right? Everyone's saying she's the biggest threat. We can't get out Adam. That's the next best target, but she might have an idol.
Yeah.
And like there's this paranoia that ends up causing the vote to shift to Dallas. And I felt like of all the people that benefit, you like benefit the most from that.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember them talking about Sparky having an idol potentially. Gosh, I wish I would have rewatched this more. I do know that like at this point, my number one goal was to get people to vote Dallas and Griffin out. Like I knew like that's what I wanted because either they were going to come after me first, or people would like. I think maybe by that point people would have like wanted to take Griffin to the end. You know, because he was like out for a chunk of time there. Like he came back from redemption. He didn't like ruffle too many feathers. I don't know. So I was just worried about them. So I'm like, how can I convince these people that they should vote them out over like anyone else?
Well, and Adam winning immunity both of the, I think he wins up final 7 and 6, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Ends up being a huge boon to this plan because you're like, well, can't get Adam out. What a tragedy. Let's get out the
I
next best
know.
target. Because
Bummer.
you like bring Megan back in. Rosie is firmly with you at this point. Adam's just like, what choice do I have, right? And you're
Right.
just like, all right, let's like once Dallas and we're like, all right, let's vote Griffin, and everyone seems to be okay with that. I mean, Hannah's not a fan, but I think that's kind of it at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. They just like kind of went along with it. That was great.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that I would have to like look through the footage that Casey says that like there is a key moment where I'm like laying out like this is exactly what I want to happen, but I don't remember like how we were on the topic of like
Mhm.
Dallas and Griffin over like myself or Sparky or Rosie. You know, I mean, obviously, like the steal a vote was a big thing. Like
Mhm.
that's like we got Griffin out because of that. You know.
Mhm. Was there any damage control you had to do with Megan when you voted out Dallas?
Um, I don't think so. Because let's see. Um, who were they targeting? Do you remember?
So Megan and Dallas end up voting for each other, right? It's just because they feel like they have no choice.
Yeah. So I think that was probably a scenario where I'm like, it's either you or him. So like, if I can cast this vote to save you, like that, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like a lot of
Mhm.
these scenarios, like it's the same with Devonte, where he was like, "Why didn't you work with me?" And I'm like, "Dude, everyone wanted you out. Like, there's nothing I could have done to save
Mhm.
you." And it's kind of the same, like in that scenario. Like, if people are choosing Dallas over Sparky, that's great for me. Like, I'll save Sparky and then not have to worry about Dallas. You know, it's just I don't necessarily remember why Dallas was like the target that time. I know I certainly want him to, but I'm sure I can't take full credit for that
Yeah.
happening.
Well, given that, like we're kind of now that we're kind of getting towards the final five, given all that there's been all this dialogue about Megan is this threat, we've seen Megan play advantages, we've seen Megan win immunities. Are you looking at Megan saying maybe I shouldn't take you to the end, or were you feeling confident that you could face Megan?
I was feeling confident that I could face Megan.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is because of the people that we were playing with and because of the people that were on the jury.
Mm-hmm.
So Megan is a very loyal player. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in her real life, she's a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's very kind. She listens to everyone. She's like super thoughtful. Um, she really is like a Rupert. Like, she's not going to blindside someone. Um, and for me, that's why in the real world, I love her.
Mm-hmm.
But in Survivor, like looking at the jury, like I knew that that's not the style that they want to vote for to win,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. Like it's no fault of her own. It's just who she is as a person.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't feel like a huge threat for me, even though she played an incredible game, because I knew that the jury wanted people to say, like, who did you like backstab in this? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Would you have felt comfortable sitting next to Adam at the end?
Yes.
Okay.
I told Adam that at the end as well. He
No,
was
because
like, "You're trying to get me." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm not scared to sit next to you at the end."
yeah, because we don't hear your answers to the question in the final tribal of when Adam asks, like, what would you say if you sat next to me? Like, we don't hear your
Yeah.
answer. We only hear Rosie's.
Yeah. And I think our answers were very similar. But at that point, like Adam and I had that conversation where he was like, "I think that you're targeting me." And I'm like, "Adam, at this point, like, because he was so paranoid,
Mm-hmm.
rightfully so, the whole time, he really like pushed people away from him
Mm-hmm.
and didn't have like those relationships. Like I think he would have gotten a vote from like Megan Wolf.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he would have gotten Devontae's just because like a winner making it all the way to the end. But like I don't know, he didn't have like those close
Mm-hmm.
relationships with people throughout the game that he had worked with. Like he bulldozed through the game by himself, like
Mm-hmm.
essentially.
Which is always impressive.
Which is impressive, but to our jury, like I really didn't think that he would win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not because he's not a great player. It's just I don't think that the jury members would have voted for him.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the moment where you lock in that final three with Rosie and Megan?
Yeah. I think it's on camera when Sparky wins that Final Four challenge.
It was that late? Because I was getting the impression kind of Final Five-ish, maybe Final Sixes, but it's really right at the end. You're like, all right, three of us together.
And we did lock it in earlier, but I'm just like,
mm-hmm.
it's hard for me to trust people. And that's one of the reasons why I love Megan so much
mm-hmm.
outside of this. Because she's the kind of person that even if she thought I was threatening, she would be like, I'm going to take you. We're just having fun. It's not a big deal. But I gave you my word and I'm going to stick to it. And I'm
mm-hmm.
That's just who she is, Mm-hmm. But after she won that Final Four, and I think we were leaning against her car, and I was like, are you going to take me? And she was like, yeah, dude, I told you I would. And I'm like, okay, but if you change your mind, please just tell me so I'm not
mm-hmm.
Blindsided. And she's like, no, I'm totally going to take you. And after we had that conversation, I was like, perfect. I believe her. I trust her. And I really, no matter how much Hannah tries to stir this up, mm-hmm. Rosie, I knew that Rosie and Sparky wouldn't have flipped on me.
One of the things I found interesting in the episodes is we hear from Rosie what his final three is like. And and his final three initially was you and I think you and Griffin. You and Griffin or you and Hannah. But Megan was never part of that until we get that. And he's like, now it's with Megan. It was really interesting to see how you forced him to change his final three to accommodate what you wanted.
Well, and it kind of happened that way because Final Five, once we were at 4. He knew that he wasn't going to get Sparky to flip on me.
Mm-hmm.
So he could have worked with Hannah to try and get me out.
Adam would like you to know that he would have beat you then.
Maybe next time, Adam. Maybe next year. But because Adam stayed in, if Adam and Griffin, if their vote outs would have been flipped,
mm-hmm.
I would have felt much more threatened because I think that Griffin would have been the key factor in rallying Hannah and Rosie
mm-hmm.
against me.
Yep.
But because Griffin went before Adam, obviously, at that point, no one wanted Adam to get any further. So that's mm-hmm. why he went out at 5.
Yeah.
So it just, I don't think it could have worked out any more perfectly for me in any sort of different world.
So that Final Four tribal council, it's a very emotional one because Hannah is doing everything she can and is emotional because this is where she got cut in her last season as well, was at the Final Four.
And I think that people unless you actually do something like mm-hmm. this, a game like this, you don't realize how emotionally and mentally exhausting it is. And by mm-hmm. that point, anyone is just about to snap. You know what I'm saying? So, she was working very hard to do whatever she could to try and get people to flip. And by that point, I just happened to have the 2 most loyal players with me, and not the 3 of us, none of us were budging at all. Mm-hmm. Which, I felt bad for Hannah, but I think it really speaks to her game that mm-hmm. A majority of us, almost all of us, knew each other and we had no idea who she was, and she made it to Final Four. So if she's played 2 games and made it to Final Four, that's incredible.
Watching back Hannah's game, did anything catch you by surprise?
Yes, all of it. I had no idea. I had no idea that she was playing so hard.
Mm-hmm.
She just made it look so effortless. And then, you watch her confessionals and I also had no idea that she was so gung-ho about getting Adam out. Until I was watching this and I was like, holy crap, this is a thing. She's very adamant about getting him out. But none of that. She played so cool, calm, mm-hmm. Who do you want to do? I don't, she played a severely non-threatening game.
Did Hannah, how forthright was Hannah about her previous game she played?
Oh, not at all. None at all. I actually remember I was like trying to connect with folks at some point in the game, and she's like, "Oh, like I'll give you like my info after the game." Like she didn't want people during the game to like find her on Facebook or like
Mm-hmm.
find her on social media because she didn't want people to know how involved she is like in the community. And at the time I was just like, okay, girl, like no big deal. And then in hindsight, I'm like, she is so sneaky. Like she is like, she really thought it through, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she didn't talk at all. She's like, yeah, I've like played a game before. Whereas Stacy was like, this is like my 105th game. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're terrifying.
I remember when I played Real Foot, there was a player there who kept talking about his experience in a game called Mayhem Manor, and for me, that just like raised the red flag, like he needs to go.
Absolutely. And I'm the same way. The more that people are like, oh yeah, I played, you know, this out in this state and this out in this state, I'm like, you're way too experienced. Like you gotta go.
So you make it to the final three. Like, what are you thinking?
I was just so happy to be there with Sparky and Rosie, and I felt like I played a very strategic game.
Mm-hmm.
And I also felt like there weren't any people that I just like very blatantly like would have upset them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Griffin because I like did work with Rosie to steal his vote to get him out, but that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the most like in your face like aggressive way of doing that, I think. So I felt great. I felt really proud of the game that I played and I was happy to be there with
Mm-hmm.
Sparky and Rosie.
So what? So looking back at your game, I love how you describe yourself. I believe you use like a sniper analogy.
Yeah.
Right, and I think because I think your defining moment in the game is that final 7-6 is taking out Dallas and Griffin, because that really changes that, it radically changes the end game to you will always be in the final three, versus if they don't go, you are, I think you're in a danger at 5 and 4.
Right. And one thing that isn't shown that I really wish would have been in the final
Mm-hmm.
tribal, again, like the final 8, that was like we did the night challenge and
Mm-hmm.
I was like picking up on these weird vibes from Dallas and Sparky. So that night I'm like really like trying to crank every strategy wheel in my brain thinking like, okay, what, like how do I get to the end of this?
Mm-hmm.
And I had it written down on a piece of paper and I knew that Hannah was going to be critical as like a swing vote towards the end. So
Mm-hmm.
the next morning, I like whip out this piece of paper and I'm like, Hannah, like, here's a way. And I don't even remember how it is, but I was like, here's a way for you and I to get to the final 3. I think maybe it would have been me, Hannah, and Rosie
Mm-hmm.
with like Sparky going out at 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, let's make this happen. But during final tribal, Hannah calls me out on that in front of everybody. And she's like, remember that piece of paper that you showed me earlier that like where you told me like the order that you wanted to vote everyone out, and like, you know, you were going to turn on Sparky and I was going to be final 3, and I was like, I'm just going to have to own this. And I like pull it out of my fanny pack and I'm like, oh, you mean this one? Like, yeah, I have it right here. And I'm trying to like not be flustered. She totally like called me out on that. um but it was pretty much like just that, like that's what I explained to her, like it has to be Dallas and Griffin. Like I wanted them to go before Adam, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest, because I feel like Adam, if he couldn't have got Sparky out, he would have like voted with me that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I forgot what we were originally talking about,
Yeah,
but I
it's
do
just like,
remember.
I mean, was there any other like major, like I feel like the major points for your tribal council, I feel like the other one was like you and Devonte, right? Because he comes swinging at you, and the two, it kind of feels like it devolves more into an argument, and
Yes.
he ends up not voting for you at the end.
Yeah. So I think that there are 2 things that happened at Tribal, which I just remembered that we were talking about the sniper reference.
Mm-hmm.
I think that from my perspective, there were two things that happened at Tribal that could have potentially like swayed folks' votes. And I think one was Hannah trying to call me out. It felt like she was trying to trip me up about, whatever my original final three plans were. And I kind of spun that to say, like, going back to the sniper reference, like my plan was to get Dallas, Griffin, Adam in somewhat of that order. And I knew that Rosie and Sparky like would have taken me to the end. Like, so I had these plans. It wasn't just like me, bumping around and it happening. The other part that wasn't on the edit was, I think someone asking, who did you explicitly like, which vote did you guide to get someone out in this game? And I think it showed Sparky kind of saying like, oh, I helped with this or that. But at that point, I just like looked at the jury and I was blatantly like, you, not you, like somewhat you. And I just like owned it. Like if I had some sort of guiding hand in that. And I think,
go ahead. Is that the question when Megan kind of is talking more about her role pre-jury with James and Alyssa?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like, that is who Megan is. Like, she doesn't want to be like, I backstabbed you and I got you out. Even if she had like a big role or deciding factor, that's just not her gameplay. But I knew that the jury, like, they wanted to know that. Like, those are the kind of players that are like Survivor super fans and they respect that. So I was like, you know what? I just have to like own this and like let them know what I did. And I think that those two were kind of like, from my perspective, maybe what influenced people's votes a little bit.
So then, end of the day, you ended up winning handily 5-2 to 2. Were you expecting the vote to be like that? Were you expecting it to be more skewed, more close?
I don't think I wasn't expecting to get Griffin's vote. I was expecting to get Hannah's. I'm honestly surprised about Devontae. Like, I did not think it was going to be like a full sweep. I thought like between Sparky and I, it was going to be really close because I mean, she won so many challenges, found so many idols. Like, she worked her butt off, had good relationships with people. So I really thought that it would be like much closer. But I was surprised that Griffin voted for me and not Sparky. And I was honestly surprised that Devontae voted for Sparky and not me. I wasn't necessarily surprised after he was like, kind of pissed at Tribal. But definitely like going into it, I think like I love that question that Stacy asked, like, raise your hand if you think you'd get this person's vote. That was like cool to watch back. But I think I raised my hand for Devontae. Like, I thought that he would have like kind of respected that. But yeah, I was surprised for sure.
So let's say things go poorly and you are the last member of the jury, right? And it's Hannah, Megan, and Rosie, final three. Was Megan always getting your vote, or would you been willing to? That's a yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah, she endured a lot. Like, it's incredibly hard to play a game when everyone's like, you're the biggest threat. Like, her and Adam like carried that the whole time. And if you can overcome that, that's
it seems like it really isolates you in the game and really limits what moves you can make. And you never had that on you, so you had a lot of flexibility in making and shaping how the game unfolded.
Exactly. It's a lot easier to do stuff when people aren't watching you all the time, making sure you're not idol hunting, making sure you didn't find an idol. Like, yeah, for sure.
So I guess looking at your game, what are your proudest moments?
I think the beginning at the tribe swap, when that first happened, I was like, I am a single blue here by myself. Like, we're outnumbered if you put us, like, there's 3 of us versus 4 of them. And I was, proud in that moment that I could use some social maneuverability to like win over some red folks. Um, I think, I don't know, there are just some moments where I just like allowed myself to have fun, like during the auction, and I'm proud that I like paused and like, took pause and just like enjoyed that moment. Um, I'm definitely proud of my game at like the final 7, coming up with a strategy for that, and it working somehow. I'm proud of that as well. And I finally won one immunity challenge, so that's pretty cool.
So looking back at the episodes, did anything stand out to you or surprise you the most about them?
I think the way Hannah played was really surprising because, like I said, she like didn't portray herself as being like super threatening. She like played so low key, so that was really surprising. Um, sorry, I'm looking at my little notes of like the order that people went out. Yeah, I don't think there was a whole lot that was surprising. Honestly, like a very zoomed out view, I'm just shocked that Casey was able to put together such great episodes because we literally had 2 people doing camera, like one person with an iPhone and one person with an Android, and Casey put together these episodes from that. And I think that that's incredible. I think his editing was amazing. Um, Looking back, there like weren't a bunch of people talking crap about me, so that was like that felt nice, Yeah, it was a
Do
good
you
time.
wish you had your own theme music like Mia or your own tribal council music like Adam?
I don't know about that. I won't pay much attention to myself, I don't think. That was like such a good touch, though. I loved that.
Are there any major moments or things that you don't think we've talked about?
I don't think so. Again, in the editing, I really love how Casey kind of like dropped those little Easter eggs of like the magic 8 ball and Adam like finally asking if that was an idol. That was like really funny in
Drove
the
me
moment
crazy.
to happen. Yeah. So it was like funny listening to your show and like you guys talking about it. And I'm like, I can't wait till we get to that point where it's like not an idol.
The payoff was good.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think playing was so much fun. Being able to watch it back was so much fun. And being able to like hear you and other people's perspectives is also so much fun. Yeah, I'm sure that later I'll think about like, oh damn, I should have mentioned this. But as of right now, it was just a great time with my friends. And I think that if anyone's ever interested in a game like this, Surviving Bloomington is a great one to start with. I haven't played others, but I've heard about them, and Casey's just like such a thoughtful and like flexible host. He's very kind by nature. So if it's like something that someone's nervous about, this is a great game to start with.
So, as a wrap up, I'd like to ask you some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And just kind of answer whatever comes to your mind first.
Cool.
So, favorite moment at camp?
Creating the fake idol with Adam.
Did we see that in the episodes?
No. But I had like a little bullet that opens up into a really tiny pocket knife. And I happened to like have it on my person. So we used that and like just crap that we found, and we made an idol, and Stacy found it. But that was fun to do that with Adam.
Favorite challenge?
The very like maybe the first one where I got to do fire building at the end.
What food did you miss the most in the game?
Oh my gosh, probably Taco Bell.
Anything particular, or all of Taco Bell?
Probably just like some quick tacos. I don't know though. It was so hot out there, like so hot that you don't want to eat.
I mean, this makes me so excited to be in Bloomington this summer. I can't wait to be there in the summer. What was your lowest moment in the game?
Um, I think probably after that night challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I think by that point I was exhausted and I was like, is this person still my number one? Like, what am I doing? Like, how am I going to navigate this? And that didn't feel like a fun night for me.
What was your highest moment in the game?
That's a good question. I don't know. Probably the ending.
I was like, as the one person that seems to say, I liked how it ended. I won the game.
Casey said the winner of yeah, probably that part.
I was wondering if you were going to say your immunity win.
That was fun too. But it didn't feel like when Adam knew if I didn't win this, I'm going to get voted out. Like it didn't feel. It felt good, but I feel like at that point I still it was still going to be Adam going. So yeah.
Who surprised you the most out there?
I think Sparky. I think that I didn't think that she could do it 2 years in a row where she found multiple idols and won multiple challenges. I was like, this year will be different, and she did it again, and I think that was surprising. Yeah.
Who do you wish you had a chance to work with but didn't?
I think James. I think I would have liked to work with James.
Who from your original season do you wish was on All Stars with you?
Oh my gosh, you're making me go back too far. I'm going to say not Mitch.
Good. I needed him as a host for a podcast.
I think there was another guy named David. He was tall David. He was really tall. And I think I would have liked to play with him again.
What advice do you have for future players playing Bloomington?
Playing Bloomington specifically, I think I don't know. I think playing any game, there has to be at least one person that you are willing to be vulnerable with and work with. I don't think that's Bloomington specifically, but I think just playing an LRG, any game like this, there has to be one person that you can kind of rely on.
And finally, did you feel like you learned anything about yourself?
Yeah, I think it was definitely a big confidence boost for sure. Especially I think watching it back and when people would get voted off, and I think someone on production would be like, who do you want to win? And it would be like, oh, I'm really hoping that Jordan will win. And I'm like, damn, that's so nice. I don't know. It definitely going into it and thinking I'm not going to make it this far. And actually making it to Final 3 and winning when you think that there's no way of that happening was makes you feel good. It's damn, I actually can read people and I should trust my instincts more. Yeah, there are definitely lessons to be learned in games like this.
Well, Jordan, I think that's all the questions I have. Is there any last things you want to say?
I am supposed to communicate to you that Stacy is disappointed that you haven't reached out to her about an interview yet.
It will happen. Don't worry, Stacy. I've only it will happen.
Yeah, she said to make sure I told you that. But other than that, yeah, I think that's it. I am super excited to be on production and watch, upcoming players, and hopefully in 5 years I'll get to play All Stars again. We'll see what happens.
Well, I'm looking forward to meeting you in Bloomington. I hope that you have a chance to play other games. There's a lot of good other games out there. And I think you might find it interesting if you did play a longer game where you have a little bit more breathing room. So, because one of the things I'm nervous about is day one vote outs.
If you just get in there and build a relationship, you'll be just fine.
Yeah,
You can't just like sit idly by on your hands, you know? You just got to go in and find a person and be friends with them. You got this.
You have a fan in Valencia. She really enjoyed this interview.
Thank you.
And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate everyone listening. Hopefully, there will be a couple more post-game interviews. And George, just thank you for your time tonight. I really appreciated it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Stephen. I look forward to meeting you this summer.
All right. Have a good rest of your evening, y'all.